Good morning, everybody. Well, it's morning here now. I am on my way to the annual polar bear ride. This is our custom around here. We have a polar bear ride on January 1st if we can at all, as long as there's no snow or ice on the road. We don't mind cold temperatures, and it is cold this morning. I believe it's in the upper 30s right now. I'm giving my thermometer here a chance to acclimate after coming out of the garage. In a little bit, we're going to meet up with some other riders for the polar bear ride, and I think the next shot you'll have will be at our pre-ride meeting. So I told you that I would let you know what the temperature is. It's not terrible. It was 37.4 just now. I mean, again, I try not to ride when it's under 40. However, for a polar bear run, I have ridden down into the low to mid 20s before. So compared to that, 37.4 wasn't bad at all. Compared to say 23 or 24 degrees, which I did about a year or two ago. Anyways, I've already seen a whole group out doing their polar bear ride. I believe they're from Appleton, Harley-Davidson. I was invited to that. May do that next year. Actually, that's the one that I rode where it was 23 or 24 a year or two ago. So, about to get to the church, about to meet up with some folks and have a pre-ride meeting. See you in a minute. You're from Oklahoma? Small world? My wife's from Oklahoma. Show me where there's an open door. Just show me an open door. You rounded a corner and one of those videos. That's up. It asked me about where to start going to churches. Anyways, then the next thing that I did is because I have so many relationships with faith riders. So one, can you imagine that? Did y'all take up the challenge? Did y'all take up the challenge? Anybody?
I haven't read it yet.
Haven't read it yet? Well,
I'm reading something else. I'm reading something else.
Fixing to read it right now. It starts out, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then He made everything. That's the first thing we learned in that verse. After our pre-ride meeting here, we went out and prayed just before we got on our bikes to ride. We were just about to mount up, and you'll see a few pictures of us, and then you'll see the actual ride itself in just a minute. So we left the church and we headed towards Springfield on some back roads. Had a good time. Everybody stayed together. It really was a nice ride. We had 7 bikes there. There were bikers that were representing faith riders, some that were CMA, some, we had a Blue Knight there, and then we had some that were unaffiliated. In all, we had 22 people. Not everybody rode a motorcycle, obviously. We had some in cars and trucks, some that were unaffiliated. And so it was a good time, but we had a great time of fellowship and everything. Back there in that meeting, we did have a little bit of a devotion. And just real quick, since this is the first of the year, I think I may go over that devotion with you here. Imagine if you were one of the first people to read the book of John, the Gospel of John. Before you had all the answers, before you had heard much about the name of Jesus. Imagine if you were one of the first hearers of this book. The Apostle John wrote, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Now, how can something be with God and be God at the same time? You would ask yourself. And then instead of just calling whoever this is or whatever this is the Word, it says He. He was with God in the beginning. Through Him all things were made. Without Him nothing was made that has been made. So in other words, every single thing that was created by this He who was with God in the beginning. He was both with God and was God in the beginning. Before time began, when the beginning happened, He was there to make it begin. Oh my goodness. Who is this guy? Someone might be thinking. Who is this He? Later in that same chapter, it says, He Himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light, talking about John the Baptist. The true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. Now that's talking about Jesus, but it hadn't named Jesus yet. Who is this coming into the world? Somebody might think, if they were one of the first readers. He was in the world, and though the world was made through Him, the world did not recognize Him. Well, who is this that's in the world, that came to the world, and the world still didn't recognize Him, even though He created the world? And finally, it gives us another clue in verse 12. It says, well, let's take look at verse 11 first. He came to that which was His own, but His own did not receive Him. So even His own people rejected Him. But in verse 12 it says, yet to all who received Him, to those who believed in His name, He gave the right to become children of God. So we can be God's son, we can be God's daughter through believing in this one who came. We still have not heard His name, even in verse 12 of the Gospel of John. In chapter 1, verse 14, it says, the Word became flesh. Now we know, most of us know now who it was that became flesh, but the Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. We have seen His glory, the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Now see, I have a beginning. I was created. He didn't have a beginning. He was already there in the beginning, and He created everything. But it still has not named who this is. You have to get all the way down to verse 17 to read who this is, who it's talking about. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. It named Him. Jesus, the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Now He came to the world, and if we believe in Him, if we receive Him by faith, we have a right to become children of God. We can be God's son, God's daughter, and we can have a great purpose. I believe with all my heart here on New Year's Day that 2025 was given to me and to you if you're listening to this. And if you belong to Jesus, He has a great purpose for you. If you don't belong to Jesus, that purpose might still exist, but you might not ever find out what that purpose is. But Jesus has a great purpose for us. Even here in 2025, we were created for such a time as this. There were 22 people in all that went on that trip, this little motorcycle ride that we're on. Brett, Gwen, their 2 boys, Kim, Cammie, Cody, my grandson, Jeff, Randy, Casey, Vanna, Peyton, Tanner, Tori, their daughter, Scott, Letisa, Jesse, and Jimmy, just to name a few. I may have forgotten some, but they all went on this trip. And I just named one of them who actually got to know my videos when he lived in California, but now he lives in Tennessee. And he went on the ride with us. That was so cool to have so many people there. We rode out, went to eat some Mexican food, El Molcajete in Springfield, Tennessee. It was really good. I would recommend it. Got warmed up in there with that nice spicy food and the warm air, and then we rode home. That was 2025's Polar Bear Ride. Hit like, share, and subscribe.